G'day art adventurers, my name is Christopher and welcome back to my channel, or if you're stopping by for the first time, welcome. So today I am using the Zig Clean Color Real brushes to paint a bunch of beetles, but I'm using these art supplies for the first time, so I'm starting off with swatching them out. And if you have bought new art supplies and not used them before, it's good to break them in by doing swatches, but also to get a real indication of what they look like on the paper or whatever it is that you're painting on. If you just rely on the colors shown on the art materials themselves, you're probably going to be misled and maybe disappointed. It also helps you to overcome maybe fear of using the supplies for the first time. And just because I got a little carried away, I decided to put a font calligraphy title on top of it, and this is the final swatch card that fits neatly into the package itself. Now I am moving on to preparing my water and supplies for painting the beetles that I drew in my last video. And this is actually something I picked up from an old antique market. It's actually an old cigarette ashtray, but I've repurposed it into a perfect little holder for small amounts of water. And it even rests the brush where I guess a cigarette used to go. And now I'm moving on to the beetles. So I'll put numbers on each of them, and you can tell me in the comments below which is your favorite. I think that it was a really challenging thing to use these, for me anyway, these Zig brushes. I really enjoyed it, but it was an unusual art supply. I don't know if anyone else has this feeling sometimes when they find an art supply that they really enjoy using, but they also find kind of frustrating or difficult to use. And I guess maybe that's just because I'm using these for the first time as well. But definitely they were far more challenging than I expected, and maybe I expected them to be used in a certain way, and I had to get used to them not really being like actual watercolors, that they're their own art medium, and I had to develop a style that I can use these with. And the big challenge there for me was developing a style that was really vibrant and intense, where usually with my watercolors I would build up layers over time, and maybe sometimes even keep the piece with light tones or pastel tones, but these Zig colors just explode out at you. And even from the first touch onto the paper, of course, you can see here, it's so bright. I wanted to slow down the footage just a little bit there so you could get a sense of the real time it would take me to lay down the colors. And now I'm going back to real time here to show you just a little bit of mixing of the colors in real time. Most of the video though is a speed paint sped up something like 10,000 times in my video editing software. This might be one of my favorite little beetles. It's a weevil, and I really liked how most of the beetles came out. There's two that I wasn't so happy with, and maybe two or three that I made some big mistakes on. But for a first go with this art medium, to have most of them come out in a way that I'm happy with, I think was really great. Or at least I'm pleased with it. And if you're like me, it can be really tempting to focus on the beetles that didn't go really well and be disappointed or annoyed at yourself for it not all matching your expectations or coming out like you wanted it to be. But, you know, it's the first time that I'm trying this, and I think you just have to remember as an artist, or if you're wanting to improve in any art or anything, you have to practice, and you'll make mistakes along the way and learn as you go. And so I'm just trying to keep that in mind more and pushing myself to create more rather than to get stuck in thinking about what ifs or waiting for that perfect moment of inspiration to strike, just to get in and start creating. And then just see what happens. You know, sometimes it's going to work out, sometimes it's going to flop, but I'm definitely learning a lot. And that's definitely the case here. I draw in total, I think 15 beetles, and I learned a lot about these supplies. I think I ended up using every color in the Zig set. And I'll talk a little bit about that Zig Clean Color Real Brush set. So they're kind of like markers, but they have a watercolor pigment inside of them and a real brush tip. And the pigment is extremely concentrated, and you can activate it and move it around when you add water. So that's why you can see that I keep flipping back to using my paintbrush on and off. I know now that there are, especially if you live in the US, other alternatives available that might be cheaper or a lot cheaper. One that comes to mind is the Arteza brushes. But I was living in Japan when I bought these Zig brushes, and I got my packet for I think $20 or $25 or the equivalent of that, which I think was pretty reasonable for these. And just to remind you, I bought this 36 set. I think that for me, that's more than enough colors. Okay, random helicopter just flew by if you heard something weird in the background there. And it's like 9:30 at night. I don't know what that's about. So anyway, getting back to this might be my other favorite beetle or equal favorite beetle. I was really happy with how it came out. It's a scarab beetle, or one of the beetles in the rhinoceros group. And getting back to the Zig Clean brushes, the pigment comes out so strong, and you can really water it down a lot. I think if you want a very light wash, you should go in with water first, and maybe even rub off the brush pigment on like a palette first, and then scoop it up, because the color that comes directly out of the tip of the brush is just super intense and really strong. And so that's okay if you want strong colors. I ended up deciding that I do want vibrant colors for these beetles, but I definitely wouldn't want this kind of look for every kind of painting or drawing that I was doing. So I decided to finish off by outlining everything with a dark or black ink. Originally, I was hoping to leave pencil lines from when I used my Coloraze pencils, but I changed my mind. And that's the end. I hope you enjoyed this art adventure. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and ringing that little notification bell to see more of my videos. Bye.